Hello everyone and welcome to another video from my narrowboat. If you're new here, my name is Laura and I am a kitchen witch. I make cozy ritual recipes from my tiny galley kitchen on my narrowboat. My recipes focus on the folklore and magical properties of my ingredients. I do a lot of foraging, I do a lot of rituals and spell work. I'm interested in witchcraft and the history of witchcraft, folklore, the natural world, the plants around me, and I bring you those stories as well as different ways to imbue ritual into your everyday. If you're not new here and we've met before, perhaps if we're old friends, you may be wondering, where have I been? Because I haven't made a video in a couple of months now. This feels very weird. When you get out the habit of something, it can feel very strange to be doing it again. I am going to do a little bit of housekeeping at the end of this video to explain where I've been and what I've been up to and why it's been so long. And particularly for those of you who helped me fund my Kickstarter for my tarot deck, my ritual recipe tarot deck. All of that information's at the end of the video, because first I have something so exciting to show you. It is almost a year to the day that I started dedicating my whole life to kitchen witchery, something that I have been doing since, 2017, 2018, but I spent a full year where every single day was just wrapped up in recipes, in research, in folklore, in foraging, looking into the history of folk remedies, looking into the magical properties of some of my favourite ingredients, and putting them all into a book. So today I want to talk about the reason why that book exists, how that came about, what it was like during the writing process, and what we've ended up with, because today I will be revealing the cover, which I'm so excited to show you, because I actually have the book. I have an advanced copy of the book, so I can actually show you what it looks like, because in my last video I explained that pre-orders were now open and I revealed the secret that I've been keeping for a long time, which is that I was writing the book, but I didn't actually have a hard copy of the book, so it was very difficult to explain it properly without actually showing you a physical version of the book, especially because for me, part of my practice, or one of the philosophies behind my practice, is that doing spells, doing rituals, doing any kind of witchcraft for me is taking an idea and bringing it into the physical. And so this is the culmination of the last year of my life into something physical and beautiful, and I'm just beyond words happy with it. So why does this book exist? What prompted me to write the book in the first place? And what did I want to achieve by writing it? So I was approached by a publisher asking me if I would like to pitch them a book about what I do. And obviously I jumped at the chance. In fact, during my first meeting with my contact at the publishers, Lucy, who has been like my ride or die throughout this whole process. I think I even had like coloured candles in the background, all of these things to persuade them that they do want to take on this book, because there was no guarantees. They'd approached me, but I was pitching them. So I think I had like a green and an orange candle for abundance and creativity. I found actually a note in my notes app very recently, clearing out the notes app. Well, that's always quite a job to take on because I have so many notes in my phone that don't make any sense. But I did find a note from around that time, from before they got in touch with me, saying manifesting a book. And a book is something that I have always wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what that would look like or exactly how that would come about. I just knew that I had it in me. This is the book that I wish I had had when I was first learning about kitchen witchery. I wanted to create something that would be useful to kitchen witches who are just starting out, who are just interested, people who maybe don't even do any kind of spell work or witchcraft, but that would also appeal to the hardcore witches out there. So one of the challenges was getting that balance right. I wanted a guide that wasn't about wellness or clean eating, because I think in these sort of like hippie food circles, a lot of the time there is a real emphasis on health. And it's not that I don't believe in eating for health, of course, but I do think that emphasis can be alienating. And just because you're in that sphere of like medicinal folk foraging type food doesn't mean that you don't want to eat a cake, because there's a lot of recipes in my book that are intended for celebration. They're intended for bringing people together. So it's certainly not all salads and sauerkraut. I wanted something that was a bit messier, a bit more mystical, where the emphasis was on the ritual aspect. To me, it's a holistic experience. Eating seasonal food with your friends and family and bringing meaning into what you're cooking. I simply didn't want any element of restriction within the pages. It's not a book that's about control or calories, it's about learning and exploration, and particularly with the foraged elements. Though it is not a foraging guide, and I am going to do another video at some point about books that will help you on your kitchen witchcraft journey, because having a few foraging books to go along with what I've written I think would be very useful. It would have been too much to include all of the identifications of the forage plants in the book, but you can definitely find that information elsewhere, and the emphasis is not on foraging, but it's a really good book for if you're interested in foraging and you don't know what to do with the plants once you've actually foraged them. Here's what you can do with them, here's what the folklore is behind them, here's the meaning behind them, and here are some recipes and ways to enjoy them. So I spent every single day for a year just writing, cooking, researching, trying different things, finding all sorts of like fascinating folk remedies and pieces of folk magic. I hear the coots outside. The main thing that I wanted to achieve with this book was that every single recipe wasn't just a recipe. It was also a vehicle for some kind of information, whether that be something about the history of the witch trials and the history of witchcraft, the history of folk magic, or something about the magical properties of the ingredients or the folklore of the flowers, the fruits, the vegetables, the spices. You could actually read the book cover to cover, not even make the recipes, and it's still, I think, a pretty good read, but I do recommend making the recipes because they are really nice. For myself personally, I, over the years have had a very complicated and at times fraught relationship with food, and that was sort of my entry into kitchen witchcraft. I wanted a way where I could see food from a perspective that wasn't wrapped up in macros and nutrients and calories. For a long time, it was very difficult for me to even look at a potato without seeing numbers. And my exploration into kitchen witchery and this book has rewritten that story for me. So here it is. This is my book. Kitchen Magic, 65 enchanting recipes and rituals for a cozy witchy kitchen. And it has the most beautiful illustrations by my friend Roxy. I'm so happy that I got to work with a friend. Whenever I get opportunities, I really want to be able to lift my friends up as well. It is such a blessing to be able to do that and to be given opportunities where I'm able to work with friends, collaborate with friends. So the first few pages of the book goes into explaining what a witch is and some of the core principles of how to build a spell or how to build a ritual so that you can apply that to your own spells and rituals. One of my favourite things that I've included is this. This is the witch's store cupboard. From allspice right the way down to yeast, it has all of the magical properties for pretty much everything that you might find in your cupboard right now, so that if you are replacing something in the book or you're building your own recipe, you have a way of doing that. That's kind of like a choose your own adventure ritual recipe section. So the structure of my book is that you sort of graduate through the chapters to the final chapter, which are like full ritual recipe spells. The first chapter is called Folk Medicine, and that is paying homage to the origins of this kind of way of using food for like medicinal or even spell work. Then we have a section called Botanical Bakes, which is about 7 of my favourite flowers and how to use them, the folklore of them, what they mean to me, and some amazing recipes. Just absolutely love this photography. The next chapter is Ceremonial Recipes, and that takes you through the wheel of the year. So from in bulk all the way down to winter solstice. There's 2 or 3 recipes per festival, and these recipes are intended to be shared. They're intended to be cooked for and with others, but there are certainly recipes in there that you can just make for yourself. These recipes are quite seasonal, so you'll have like a wild garlic recipe for the spring equinox to use up the wild garlic that should be out. And then as we pass through summer, the emphasis is more on summer flowers and summer berries, all the way into the autumnal winter celebrations, where you'll find more things like apples or sweet potato. This is a fantastic example of what I mean when I say each recipe is a vehicle for some kind of folklore or information. These are Memento Mori rosemary soul cakes, and the intention of this spell is to remember those that have passed. and you would do this around Samhain, Halloween, and this is also linked to the origin of trick-or-treating. So again, it might just look like a recipe, but it's actually got some really interesting information about folklore, folk practices and witchcraft. The next recipe is menstrual magic. There are certain people who believe that women aren't good at cooking because of their menstrual cycles and their hormones, and that interferes with like taste. Up until I think 1993, women weren't used on medical trials because of their hormones, because of the variables in their hormones throughout the month. It was too complicated. For a long time, women have been ignored in certain fields, certain professions, and certain things that would, create life or death scenarios for women, like our health, because of our menstrual cycles. So I really wanted to make a chapter that talks about the menstrual cycle and doesn't just talk about how to counter some of the negative, in quotes, negative hormonal effects of the menstrual cycle, but also to enhance some of the positives of the menstrual cycle, because it's not all doom and gloom. There are phases throughout the month where you're more alert, you're more on it, you're more beautiful, or seemingly so. I'm one of those women who has a couple of weeks of the month, or at least a week of the month, where like mentally and physically I can't really do much. I can, but I just don't really feel like it. But then I'll have 1 week of the month where I do everything in that week. Like I just don't even know how I physically do it, but my brain is on fire and I can just get everything done that I need to get done. So I think instead of trying to dampen the roller coaster that is the menstrual cycle, you can use food, you can use certain ways to enhance those feelings or those symptoms to your advantage, to your benefit. And of course, for those people who don't menstruate, because obviously there's a lot of people out there who also don't menstruate, but it is still applicable, because although not everybody is experiencing like low mood or irritability or mood swings, for example, because of the menstrual cycle, it doesn't mean that some of these ingredients and some of these recipes won't work to counteract or enhance the symptoms of the menstrual cycle, even if that's not where it's coming from. For example, chamomile is used in one of my recipes to counteract like irritability and low energy. And chamomile will work for anyone. Like, that's not based on the menstrual cycle. Chamomile is just a great plant to use for calming and stopping mood swings, and it has historically been used for the menstrual cycle for a long time, but it doesn't mean that its effects are null and void for people who don't menstruate. I then have a section called broomstick brews, which are drinks. Again, one of my favorite recipes in the book. It's so simple. It's witch bottle vermouth, because if you know anything about folk magic already, you'll know that one of the artifacts that we tend to find, particularly in Britain, particularly in places like Cornwall or Norfolk, is witch bottles. They were a really big craze for the folk magic craze of like the 1800s particularly. So this recipe is in kind of homage to that. There's no urine or nails in it, as is traditional, but again, this recipe is a great recipe, but it's also a vehicle for teaching you something about that old folk magic and what people were up to, and how they thought it worked. Coffee syrups are something that I've used like pretty much every single day to set intentions. And I've included my favourite ones in the book. So you've got a syrup for confidence, you've got one for creative energy, there's one for financial success, and one for healing and protection. And they're all really tasty syrups as well. Like the financial success syrup is ginger, cinnamon, brown sugar syrup, yum. So even if you aren't making really elaborate ritual spells from the book, that's something that you can make and then enjoy every single day. And it saves you money because it stops you going to the coffee shop. I've also included 4 moon milks, and like the coffee syrups, it's just a really simple ritual spell that you can sew into your everyday. But more than that, they're really yummy as well. And then the final section that you sort of graduate to, but you can use these recipes at any time really, and it's called Practical Magic. And each recipe in this section is a full ritual spell. It gives you the moon phase, the day of the week, the colour for your candle, what type of incense to use, what kind of crystal you might want to have nearby while you're making it. You can use all of those variables or none of them. These recipes are just a little bit more elaborate. Again, all of them are a vehicle for information or folklore or learning or education, and each one of them also has an incantation to say out loud. Again, you know, I'm not the kind of witch who says a lot out loud, so usually it's only 4 lines, because part of the reason why I love kitchen witchery so much is that like, if you're doing big elaborate ritual ceremony spells, you can feel a little bit silly, especially if you're, you know, on your own. It can feel a bit silly, and that's one thing that I love about kitchen witchcraft is you're just cooking, so you don't feel silly. But because of the book, because I wanted to include something that was a little bit more like elevated for these ritual spells at the end of the book, I have started bringing incantations into my work a lot more. That's really encouraged me to like actually think about saying things out loud, and I found it really helpful. It feels really powerful, and even though I only say a few lines, I don't feel silly anymore. Like I actually really love doing it now. So yeah, these recipes at the end of the book in the final chapter just have a lot more ceremony around them. But there's some delicious recipes here. Tahini blondies. My favorite recipe in the whole book is these sour cherry and balsamic brownies. Now that might sound strange, putting balsamic into your brownies, but I promise it works. It really works, and it's absolutely delicious. It's sharp and sweet and just so yummy. So yeah, that's a little look at my book Kitchen Magic. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking the book out. Videos are now back on the agenda. So the reason why I had to take a little bit of time off there is that from all of the drawing for my tarot project, if you're new here, I did a Kickstarter for a tarot deck that also has a recipe per each card based on the meaning of the card, and then linking that to the magical properties or folklore of an ingredient. So it's a totally separate project from this. I illustrated all of the 78 cards for the tarot deck, and unfortunately, because I'm stupid and I didn't do any kind of like stretching or exercises, like I actually sleep like a pretzel, I think, because I mean I'm in pain today. So I was spending up to 12 hours a day just hunched over my iPad, like drawing, trying to get these drawings done. And unfortunately, because I wasn't doing any exercises or even standing up to like stretch my body out, I sustained an injury. So on my right arm, I had something called thoracic outlet syndrome, which, let me tell you, like if you know what that is, you don't want it. It's horrible. It's just a constant pain in your arm. The muscles in my back had become so stiff and contracted so much that they were actually pressing on a nerve. So it was just constant pain. Lucky for me, a physiotherapist in the family, so as soon as I saw her, she popped my back and that sorted it all out. Amazing. Like that was like magic to me. I was like, I cannot believe that works. And I continued doing my exercises, so that pain hasn't come back. But as soon as that pain went away, I became aware that I had pain here. I basically had tennis elbow from a very non-tennis activity, from like being sedentary and drawing. Even though I have been resting, I had to take a month off from the drawing of the tarot, and I couldn't make videos. I could kind of make short form videos, but in terms of like big editing projects, typing in particular, because if you move your fingers, you can see there the muscle in my arm moving, and that's what was hurting. So yeah, like typing and big edits on my laptop were kind of out of the question. So I gave myself some time off and healed, and we're pretty much there. Like we're fine. I just need to do my exercises and like really be aware that when I edit and when I draw, I'm like hunched over. And I can't do that. But tarot update, I have finished the guidebook. I've prepped all of the files. I've been, you know, cleaning bits up and moving bits and like creating the text. I have sent off like a PDF of the guidebook and of the cards to 2 separate printers, because in the end I did a lot of research and I found one printer that was better for the cards and one that was better for the guidebook. So I'm currently waiting on a sample of the book and the cards, because I don't want to order 500 and then realise that I've made a stupid mistake, like spelt something wrong, or you know, the colour doesn't look right, because I'm very prone to clumsiness, and I'm particularly prone to like computer clumsiness. If all looks good, I can press go on my order. I should have that delivered to a friend's house sometime in August, and then I can start posting them out. So I am right on time for what I said I would be able to deliver them for, which makes me really, really happy. I'm glad that I gave myself such a chunk of time to be able to do it. I remember when the Kickstarter was up, I had one comment from someone saying, you will never be able to do this in this time. And so I don't want to count my chickens yet, but I've got half of a ha-ha in me, just a ha, because at least I've done all the drawing and the recipes and the guidebook. And I might have another project in mind, but you know, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed looking at my book. It exists now, it's real. It exists in the world. I can't believe it. It's a real physical thing that I made. Wow. And if you would like to pre-order it, obviously I've left the link below. I think that's fairly obvious. Can't pull the wool over your eyes, can I? This is purely a video to ask you to pre-order. And as gauche as it is, for an author like me who's new, I've never done anything like this before, and I can fully say that I've put my heart and soul into it, and I just want it to be a success. Like, it would mean so much for me if it did well. Obviously I'm glad that it just exists, but if it then did well on top of that, that would just be amazing. And in order for it to do well, the most important thing, and I'm sure you've heard this from many different new authors before, many different YouTubers that you follow, but the most important thing is pre-orders. It means everything, because that's how bookshops know that there is any demand whatsoever for a book like that. My dream is to just, you know, walk into random bookshops and just see it there. And I know that's going to happen, because I know it will be going to bookshops, but if it doesn't do well, maybe they'll hide it in the back, I don't know. So if you have been thinking about getting it, please pre-order it. It would mean so much to me. So thank you again for watching another one of my videos. Next week I will be back with regular scheduled programming, because I do edit all of my videos myself. So provided that this doesn't flare up again and that my arm doesn't fall off, we are back, which I'm really happy about, because I've missed chatting. And now that I've actually sat down and started talking, I'm like, oh, I really miss doing this, and I really miss editing YouTube, and I've got so many YouTube ideas just sitting there, so many videos that I want to make. In fact, I've got a whole schedule from now until the end of the year of just what video I want to put out each week. So if you're new here, please subscribe, because there won't be another 2-month gap, I promise. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely week. I will see you next week.